Green, as you can see, the spring flowers are out. Trees are still green. Had you come in about a month's time, you would have found a marked difference. Things start to go very brown and dry looking. And this part of Attiki is mostly given over to agriculture. You'll see there's not a lot of maintenance.
This is our room. First shot. And I'll show you what they brought us here. You can see, I guess it's wine, champagne, glasses. We're on the 5th floor, room 505. And we are just down the street from the Parthenon. This is a picture of Athens, approximately 7:30 in the evening. You can hear the sound of the cars down below. It's a real crowded place. There's a park across the road. Man on a horse. Looks like several families there. Trolley.
He took her away with him. So all of a sudden Persephone disappeared, and her two half-sisters had no idea where she was. Of course they started to look for her. This Olympus, and she started going from one
Industrial area,
to the next, trying to find where her daughter was. Disappointed, eventually one day she came to Eleusis, to this place where we are now. But she wasn't her old self. She wasn't the goddess that people could recognize. She was an old woman. That old woman went straight to the local king, called Kereos. She asked from him to construct a temple and to dedicate the building to Demeter. Without asking any questions, he decided to do that. In a few days' time, the temple was ready. The Greeks were starving. They were very worried because they knew that they depended on her. Without her help, they were going to starve to death. So they started praying to the rest of their ancient gods, most especially to Zeus that protected them. Zeus went around Greece as well, and at the very end he asked a person that was called Ilios if he had seen Persephone.
As we're nearing Corinth, this is a picture of the water.
Different tribes that were coming from the north ended up there. People during the prehistoric period, from the 7th millennium BC and on, couldn't live from there because in order for them to live, they needed to have boats. As they had no boats, they remained there. At the very beginning, the very first people that got there.
Walking toward the Corinthian Canal. Corinthian Canal. There they are.
Third millennium BC. From there, they could see the enemy arriving. The enemy normally came from the sea. It makes sense. When they started to feel a bit safer, they came down here. This is a fairly flat area compared to other areas of Greece. So they realized that this was the best spot in order for them to construct a city. The Greek city, the one of the Corinthians. Now, the city prospered from the 7th century BC and on. We know that the Corinthians were exporting their goods, first of all, to the rest of the Greek cities and to the colonies that they had. And the Corinthians, ever since that time, had two colonies that were extremely well known. The colony of Corfu, that's the Greek island of Corfu that lies. Actually, they decided to cut the columns horizontally into smaller pieces known as the drums. There was always a hole in the middle, a small opening. They were adding a piece of wood or a piece of metal in there, and that's what was keeping the columns together as one piece. We'll see that in Athens. Here you have the earliest method of constructing columns, simply because this is a building that goes back to the 7th century BC. So what you see is 2,700 years old. As this is a typical building, and as we are standing here, you do not see the entrance of the temple, for a very simple reason. Entrances needed to face the sun early in the morning, as buildings had no windows back then. So if they wanted to have enough light going in, the door had to face the sun during the day. It was as simple as that. The entrance was at the other end of the building. People could come in, they could find 3 rooms. Inside the main one was the statue of Apollo, in this case. Remember that most statues were made out of gold and ivory, two materials that costed quite a lot, and that's of course the main reason why we do not have them anymore. We had so many different invaders that kept on coming and going, stealing treasures upon their departure. So talking about objects, things that we have, very few things have survived. We mostly have the pottery, the traditional pottery of the area that is in the museum. No treasures, no very valuable things. Now, from this side all the way to where the building is. As you see down there, a very big part of it is missing. And it is missing because they used the rest of the stone while constructing their buildings. So they used it for the different buildings that we had here. Okay. Now that room that you see at a distance is supposed to be a fountain. Having water was very, very important. The weather is fine today. It gets very, very hot during the summer. Remember that this is the main part of the city. This is where the inhabitants meet. So you have thousands of people coming here on a daily basis. We believe that the city of Corinth must have had more than 500,000 inhabitants eventually one day. And of course, it was important to have water. Water was always coming from the highest hill, from the hill of Acrocorinth. You do see the fountain of Gelafki. Gelafki was in love with Jason, a very well-known hero of the Greek mythology. Medea was also in love with him at the same time, and she wanted to get rid of Gelafki, so she sent to her a cloak that contained poison. She decided to wear it without knowing that, of course. Her body was on fire, she fell into a fountain, that fountain which is named after her. This is how the legend goes. Okay, it was important to have water there, not only for the thousands of people that were coming on foot in order to visit the Agora, because around this place was the actual city of Corinth. So far, we only have the Agora of Corinth. Excavations continue. The idea is to find the rest of the city, which must have been very, very big, according to the evidence that we have. So it's not going to happen that very easily. And it's not going to happen now, at least, because of the fact that there's another town nearby, which they have to destroy, tell people to go away so that they can continue. Okay. So normally there is a wall, a room right in front of it. There is probably a colonnade in front of that. There is definitely a roof that was made out of wood. That's the main reason why it didn't survive. Okay. The idea of such a building is being called by us, this is another term that we use, stoa. The stoa is always a very long building. Different colors of marble we do have, almost all of which come from Greece. We always had marble in this country. And then, from where you are, by looking straight ahead, you see the Temple of Apollo once again. In front of it, you see shops once more. The one that is considered as being the most important one is the one with the vaulted roof. That has been restored, of course. That room, we believe, was used as a chapel at the beginning of the Christian period. And you have to use your imagination, because of course there are nothing but ruins down here, so that you can understand how this place was. So people could see the temple, in front of it were the shops, and then right next to the shops, can you see that pine tree? Right after it, you were supposed to have the monumental entrance of a building. The building that was right behind, right after that monumental facade, was a basilica. And basiliki or basilica is a church. We'll get back to that in a minute. The main entrance of the building, and as you can see, practically nothing survives out there, with the exception of a couple of statues that are in the museum, was known as the facade of the prisoners, because we always felt that the statues represented prisoners. People could use the main door of that facade in order to, just a few feet away from where we are. You needed to have 2 more rows of shops and of public buildings. You see, the Agora and every Agora of Greece, not only this one, started as a place where people could go in order to do their shopping. That's not all. Eventually people realized that because the Agora was the heart of the city, that is why they started to have public buildings. For instance, in this area, close to where St. Paul went to, we know that in older times, before the Romans, we had a public building which was visited, among other people, by the king of northern Greece. The king of northern Greece was called Philip. We have the buildings that you see. There is a fountain, there are baths, there are restaurants nearby. And from this side, apart from the fact that there was a basilica, you also have shops.
Lekion Road.
Commanded that all Jews depart from Rome. And because he was of the same craft, he abode with them and wrought, for by their occupation they were tent makers. And he reasoned in the synagogue every Sabbath and persuaded Jews and Greeks. And when Silas and Timotheus were come from Macedonia, Paul was pressed in the Spirit and testified to the Jews that Jesus was Christ. And when they opposed and blasphemed, he shook his raiment and said, "Your blood be upon your own heads. I am clean. From henceforth I will go unto the Gentiles." And he departed thence and went into a house of a certain one named Justus, one that worshipped the Lord, whose house was joined hard to the synagogue. And Crispus, the chief ruler of the synagogue, believed in the Lord with all his house, and many of the Corinthians, hearing, believed and were baptized. Then spake the Lord to Paul in the night by a vision, saying, "Do not be afraid, but speak. Hold not thy peace, for I am with thee, and no man shall set on thee to hurt thee, for I have much people in this city." And he continued there 1 year and 6 months, teaching the word of God among them. And when Gallio had been made the deputy of Achaia, the Jews made insurrection against Paul with one accord and brought him to the judgment seat. And when Paul was, and they said, this fellow persuadeth men to worship God contrary to the law. And when Paul was now about to open his mouth and respond to this, the Bible then tells us that Gallio spoke up and said, "Look, if this be a matter of wickedness or lewd conduct, wicked lewdness or wrong," he said, "then it would be fine, reasonable for you to bring this to me." But he said, if you do not have anything to bring to me but your own issues about words and customs and things pertaining to your law, O you Jews, he says, you look to it. He says, I'm not going to judge on matters such as this. And then the Bible goes on to tell us that he drove them from the judgment seat. And then the Greeks of the city went and they got Sosthenes, the ruler of the synagogue at that time, and they beat him severely and then they from that point on, Paul stayed a little while longer, then sailed on from that point. But That's the basic account that's found in the book of Acts that tells us about how Paul was brought to this place and the charges that were filed and the unwillingness of Gallio to deal with any of that. And the Bible does end that section by saying that when they beat Sosthenes, Gallio cared for none of these things. He didn't even get involved with it.
Them down, he needed to offer them a very expensive gift. And that expensive gift was the theater that you see. This is too small. The biggest ones of Greece had room for 21,000 spectators. This has room for 6,000 spectators. But it had to be that small because this was never an open-air theater. A bit further to the right, there is a building with one almost black dome. Can you see that? That is the Observatory of Athens. The observatory of the 19th century. Not in use anymore.
It's the
I know
birthplace
that
of democracy.
you cannot see what I'm about to say, but you can. Look down, you see around the hill. There are quite a few people on the very hill. That is the hill where St. Paul went. So you're actually looking at Mars Hill. See how close it is to where we are. Okay, you understand that of course that hill was chosen by him so that he could be as close as possible to the many people that were coming up here. As people were coming up here so that they could pray, of course. And then, down there where the trees are, you see the ruins in front of the temple. All of the ruins that you see down there are part.
Okay, we're on a very windy day on the top of the Acropolis. That's Caretta sitting there, Erechtheum. In the city, it's a beautiful day today, about 80 degrees, with a real strong wind. On Mars Hill, looking back up to the Acropolis.
We read from Acts chapter 17, beginning with verse 16. It says, "Now while Paul waited for them at Athens," and he was talking about Silas and Timothy, "his spirit was prepared within him, so that the city was given over to idols. Therefore he preached in the synagogue of the Jews with the Gentile worshippers, and in the marketplace daily with those who happened to be there. Then certain Epicurean and Stoic philosophers encountered him, and some said, 'What does this babbler want to say?' Others said, 'He seems to be a proclaimer of foreign gods, because he preached Jesus and the resurrection.' And they took him and brought him to the Areopagus, saying, 'May we know what this new doctrine is of which you speak? For you are bringing some strange things to our ears, therefore we want to know what these things mean.' For all the Athenians and the foreigners who were there spent their time in nothing else but to either tell or to hear some new thing. Then Paul stood in the midst of the Areopagus and said, 'Men in Athens, I perceive that in all things you are very religious. For as I was passing through your city, I noticed the objects of your worship. I even found an altar with the inscription, to the unknown God. Therefore the one whom you worship is unknown, him I proclaim to you, God who made the world and everything in it. Since he is Lord of heaven and earth, he does not dwell in temples made with hands. With men's hands, as though he needed them, since he gives to all life, breath, and all things. And he has made from one blood every nation of men to dwell on the face of the earth. And he has determined their pre-appointed times and has established the boundaries of their habitations, so that they should seek the Lord, and in hope that they might grope for him and find him, though he is not far from each one of us. For in him we live and move and have our very being, as one of your poets has said, for we are his offspring. Therefore, since we are his offspring, the offspring of God, we ought not to think of the divine nature as gold or silver or stones, or something shaped by art and man's devising. These times of ignorance God once overlooked, but now commands all men everywhere to repent. And he has appointed a day on which he will judge the world in righteousness by the man whom he has ordained. He has given assurance of this and raising him.
This is part of the original wall to the city of Athens. You can see it was much taller, went all the way to the Acropolis.
We said that the Corinthian capitals were decorated with flowers and leaves. Come and have a look.
These are the current flowers that were used for the Corinthian on the fig tree.
Just a few feet away.
The fig tree. It's interesting accent of the word. There's a Stoa Vitalis looking up to the Acropolis, Mars Hill. And this is the marketplace. And we're in front of the temple built in honor of the blacksmiths. The same floor plan as the Parthenon, with the exception that it is 4 times smaller. We're walking away from the Acropolis. It's lined with all these nice little restaurants. Everybody's legs are tired. Well, the food really smells good. There goes a train. Well, the ship's pulling out from the port of Piraeus here near Athens. We're being mustered to the first drill where everybody must wear their life jacket. Pulling out, getting ready to go. It's just a little bit after 5. We're supposed to assemble on our deck. This is the promenade deck where Coretta and I are staying. You can see outside we're coming up to the island of Mykonos, and there's an elevator, stairs, and there's a couple of hallways here on this side. Here's the ship is really moving. I'm having a hard time standing up. The wind is blowing so strong here, it's holding the doors open. See, we're coming up close to the port, as well as other ships as well. Well, starting out in our room, it's fairly small. Small TV, about the size of a Coke bottle. Small bathroom. Here's Coretta's bed, twin bed, and then my bed. You can see we've got an excellent view. Right now it's really moving. Here's the bathroom and the shower. Sink. We are passing one of the boats heading in. You see other boats that are also heading into port. Front of the Aquamarine, and the wind wind is really, really strong. I can barely stand up. Here's the deck. You can see the whitecaps on the water. Little ferry boat to Mykonos. This is Little Venice on Mykonos. Yeah. Streaks of old Mykonos. Greta wants to shop in this one. We're walking down the street of Mykonos. Olive oil soap. Those are €5, sweetie. This is €5. We're here at Mykonos, and this is where our ferries came in. You can see the islands here. Looking for the windmills. Not seen any. There are a number of churches. There's a man fishing. Everybody loading boats to go back. Pamela?
I'm so glad Happy's happy.
That's our little tender boat.
Did you,
The Daphne R. Scarlet. Our driver for today is Manolis. We do see on the right our old town with the palace of the Grand Masters of the Knights, the best preserved medieval area in all Europe. Later we are going to have a walk in our old town, and this was one of the ancient harbours. The 5th century BC, they would put a thick chain from one side of the mole to another, so they would prevent the enemy ships coming in and attacking. And once it was quite funny, somebody asked me, how would they prevent the submarines? But the 5th century BC, we didn't have any submarines, of course. Anyway, we are leaving our harbour. We'll drive through the city of Rhodes, and then we'll come to the east side of the island, and we'll start heading for Lindos. Lindos is one of the 3 ancient areas, 55 kilometers from the town, so it takes about an hour. Coming to Lindos, whoever wants to will follow me up to the Acropolis. If you don't feel like it, you don't have to. You can stay in the little village where you will have all the time for shopping, looking around, relaxing. We stay for about 2 hours. Then we start returning. On the way back, we'll have a quick stop in a pottery workshop just for you to see how they work with the clay on the island. Rhodes is famous for its pottery. We do have the best biggest play in all Greece. Then we come into the city of Rhodes. The bus will leave us in front of one of the entrances of the old town. We are going to visit on foot. It's about a 20-minute walk. We do pass from the palace of the Grand Masters of the Knights, come down the street of the Knights, meet the bus and return back to the ship. And I do tell you, it's only a 5-minute walk to return, so you can have lunch and board and then come into the old town, do all your shopping, have a walk and have something to drink. But I'll show you at the end of the excursion how to return to the old town. Not everything was built at the same time. They would have first of all the most important building. Very slowly they would realize what was missing and they would add it to the building. For you to get an idea, the 6th century BC, on the top of this hill, they have a very small temple, you see it here, from wood, with a big flight of stairs coming down and nothing else. But because it was from wood, it was burnt down after 200 years. So they rebuilt it exactly the same as the first one, but this time from stone. And in front of it, on the same terrace, they had a very big sacred gate to find in all the early religions for the purification of the pilgrims. After 100 years, they form another terrace, and on it they have a very big portico that would be useful because it would protect everybody from the rain and the sun. The 1st century, they have the first terrace. We are exactly here. The steps in the plan are the ones you're going up in a few minutes. But where we are, we do see very important things. First of all, from antiquity, these systems where they would collect the rainwater, they needed it if they were attacked. The most famous thing of Lindos is the boat you see carved on the rock. It was done in the 2nd century BC. It was a base of a statue. There was a statue there representing an admiral, and we found writings saying that he was honored to sit in the front seat whenever something important happened. This was one of the biggest honors of those days. The boat was a trimiolia. These were small boats that would come up to a point, attack big ones, make holes in them, so they would sink quite quickly. I don't know if you've ever been to Paris in the Louvre Museum, if you ever go. If you go, you've got this statue, I'm sure you remember it. It's the Winged Victory of Samothraki, and I'm showing it to you because today we know that it was exactly the same artist that made this statue and the base of the statue on the rock. That means that there was a very good school of art here. Even the Colossus of Rhodes was done by a Lindian for Rhodes. Next to the boat, there's an exedra. Exedras you find everywhere. I would call them a speaker's corner. Somebody would go up there, they would start speaking. What is important here is that we have found writing that belongs to the Roman priest, and his dream was to plant everywhere olive trees. So it shows to us the concept of economy. In ancient days, there were very good seasons, and they started using everything because the first the other church always agriculture, and the only trees that could survive in the area.
This is the palace where they throw boiling water, boiling oil.
The ones with a very high amount of use where they were somewhere else. Then they made the ones today, and in between we do have remains of the ancient staircase dated back to the 4th century. Normally going up should be immediately on the first terrace. You enter 2 rooms that are not ancient. They're only 500 years
4th century BC. This is it near the top of the fortress. A bunch of our group. There goes Alan, Glenda, Caleb. A group of ours are getting ready to have a picture made up here in front of the temple.
How's the boat? I guess there's a little path there. Okay, yeah. Did you see it though?
Is this the pond she was talking about again? That's supposed to be St. Paul's Bay. This is St. Paul's Bay. I will not remember that.
St. Paul's Bay. To give us some perspective, here's the temple. and the Acropolis area, the high point. We'll have to have a map to map this out. But you can see the side that faces the sea. You can see the restoration of the temples taking place here. Probalea. Military group going down. There goes Jerry. There's BJ and Sean. Our group's getting pictures here. There's Tim taking a picture of Eric and Cindy, and Sean and BJ taking pictures here. By way of explanation, the guide told us that the red clay placed between the tiles was a Byzantine technique to shore up the walls. And there's the Fisher clan. Some of the archways that she described in the beginning, the Keystone effect, is really remarkable here. You can see the restoration and the cat.
Comme ça, dans le commentaire, on mettra Windows, c'était le plus. Et regarde les pièces qu'il y a là. Bon, hein. Mom asked, do you have this in a placemat? No, my love. We do not.
Lindos. And there's where we will meet our group back shortly. And I'm standing on a ledge out in this area, and Alan and Glenda, Tim and Cindy are bargaining for placemats. Okay, we're down about halfway. Beautiful rocks here. We're gonna go the old way back to the square. Beautiful little shops. Socrates Art Gallery, Lindos.
It would fly everywhere, it wouldn't stay on the wheel. He is using the very old method. They made vases like this the 12th century BC. Now, to tell you the truth, in our days they use the other wheel. Can you see it over there? That wheel turns around with electricity because somebody cannot be kicking away for 8 or 9 hours. You will see the shapes he gives to the player. And his hands are always in water so he can work with the player. Even if there are so many factories, there is no school where somebody can learn how to make a vase. It is still a tradition given from father to son. Of course, we do go to different places. It's out of my control. The company decides. I like it when we come here. because you do see local pottery, not things that are imported. Today nearly everything is imported. Now, first of all, I'm sure that you've seen pottery in other places, so maybe you've seen the museum copies. Some of them have a little label from lead. That means that it's an exact museum copy. Can you see the God of the Sun with his sun chariot? All these are for decoration. Then another type, I'm sure that you've seen in other places, is the blue with the gold. And this is a 24-karat gold paint. This is the only place where you find green with gold, nowhere else. You find blue and white, but not green. And then you have, look what he's making, it's magnificent. Look how he brings it up. You must be very careful and must be kicking away too, so it's not so easy. He's one of the best potters on the island. I'm not exaggerating. And this is a family business, really.
Wow.
You know, he didn't make a plain vase. He made it really good when we can thank him with a clap. And you see,
Coming into the old city of Rhodes. This is the old moat entrance.
around, and we are entering from the official gate, because from here somebody would go into the palace of the Grand Masters of the Knights. It's called the Gate of d'Amboise. He was a Grand Master and he finished the gate in 1512. This is why on top in white marble you see an angel holding on its one hand the cross of the order, on the other hand the coat of arms of Grand Master d'Amboise, and underneath in Latin letters you will see when you're closer the year 1512 when the gate was finished. We do have a moat. The moat never had any water because it was higher than the sea level. But again, it would protect the town. The bridges were done from wood, so they would lift them up. And the big round stone walls you see were used with catapults, so they would throw the walls down. We have 3 gates until we enter. You should know that an approach to a medieval town is never in a straight line. That means that one door is not at the back of another. It's done deliberately, because if you would have a power of 10 or 20,000 men trying to break the first gate, it would be very easy for them to break the second and the third. Like this, they would have to turn left, right, left again. They always had other walls, another moat. It was impossible.
We're now inside the first gate. We're walking through the next gate. As she said, a characteristic of a medieval town entrance.
Cool, isn't it?
Catapult balls.
Remember what I told you? It was rebuilt during the Italian occupation. What's beautiful are the small windows done from alabaster in the night when the palace is. The Knights come in 1309. They built the palace. Opposite is the very big church dedicated to St. John. They do have all the gunpowder. In 1856, the terrible explosion, everything is destroyed. So when the Italians come, they decide to rebuild it. The governor made a mistake, he didn't excavate before. I told you that underneath we have ruins. In the courtyard of this palace, we have found a head of a statue representing the god of the sun. Don't forget that this island was dedicated to the god of the sun, so somewhere there must have been a very big temple we haven't found. Most probably it was here, and if the temple was here, the Colossus of Rhodes stood here. But it's only a theory. They would have to destroy completely the palace, and maybe they wouldn't find anything. The palace outside is like the original one, because they had the engravings and the foundation that was left. But inside they had no idea how it was, so they did whatever they wanted. Well, to get an idea, the palace has 125 bedrooms. Whatever the governor liked to put inside. On floors you've got magnificent mosaics coming from the nearby island of Kos. The furniture is brought from Italy and France. It dates back to the 18th century. You have Japanese vases, radiators, even an elevator. King Victor Emmanuel and Mussolini never came. The Second World War broke out. They were much too busy with the war. They had no time for a holiday. So the only person who stayed was the governor, and then it was turned into a museum. I don't understand why. In summer, we have hundreds of people going down the street. As soon as they see an open door, they go inside. They start taking photos of the bathroom, the kitchen, the bedrooms. These are private homes, so it's only normal that they close them. When the nights we really had steps going down, they put these covers, quite nice, but not so comfortable to walk on. So I would advise you to stay on the inside of the street. You start going down, I'll show you to the different houses. Don't get muddled up with the umbrellas, mine is blue.
I don't have any arrows. We'll have to get some.
Good morning. It's 6:26 a.m. and we are the Isle of Patmos. They're dropping anchor. This is where we're going to be this morning. Lord willing, we're going to have church services here. Beautiful place for us. It's been really terrible for the Apostle John.
Here, just a second, just we all try something to you. Normally, all groups, just like you, come from different places with probably different religious facts. It's redundant to tell you that I respect very deeply the way you practice your personal faith, but as a professional guide, and because now you are visiting another country with probably a different religious tradition, I'm just obliged, let's say, to introduce to you the tradition of this particular country you're visiting. So, you have to be aware of the fact that here in Greece, the 98% of the Greeks practice the faith of the Eastern approach of Christianity. So, if I would like now to use titles, I could say that Greeks are Orthodox. The Orthodox denomination, the Orthodox Church, is the church which respects equally what? The Bible, the Old and the New Testament, and also the Holy Tradition. That means for me, practically, whatever I'm going to say to you in this tour concerning religious matters just reflects the teachings and the doctrine of this particular approach of Christianity, the Eastern. So, ladies and gentlemen, the biblical text of the 22 chapters, which was received in that famous opening of the earth, the book of Revelation, I mean, is actually the last book of the New Testament, the 27th book of the whole corpus. And you know, the whole biblical text consists of what? Of the visions the author of it received in that day. Visions which reveal the future of the human race. Here in Greece, we are accustomed to calling the book of the Revelation as the biblical bestseller of the New Testament, because we believe very strongly that future is always fascinating and interesting for everybody. We call the author of this particular biblical text as John the Evangelist, the divine, the theologian, the disciple, the apostle. We do not call him the forerunner or the Baptist, because John the forerunner or the Baptist is a totally different biblical John. So, the author of the book of Revelation, ladies and gentlemen, was one of the 12 disciples of Jesus Christ, the most beloved disciple of Jesus Christ. His father's name was Zebedee. He was a fisherman. His mother's name
was Salome, one of the ladies who applied perfumes on Christ's body. His brother's name was James the Elder. The two brothers, the sons of thunder, as they were called by Christ, John and James, with their father, Zebedee, owned a fishing company in the lake of Tiberia. When Jesus Christ went there, the two brothers abandoned everything and followed him. Ladies and gentlemen, the author of the book of Revelation was that particular disciple of the 12 to whom Jesus Christ entrusted his mother on the cross. I remind you of the last phrases of Jesus on the cross. First of all, he looked at his mother and he said to her, "Woman, behold, thy son." Come a little bit closer to me in order to leave some space behind because people are coming. Come closer. Thank you very much. So, woman, behold, thy son, referring to him. And then he looked at the disciple whom he loved and he said to him, "Behold, thy mother," referring to her. And from that hour, that disciple took her unto his own home. Ladies and gentlemen, the author of the book of Revelation was that particular disciple of the 12 who had the experience of the transfiguration of Christ on the Mount Thabor. Jesus chose John and James. The author of the book of Revelation, ladies and gentlemen, is also the author of the fourth gospel, the according to John, Catholic epistles. In the first chapter of the book of Revelation, if you read it, you are going actually to read the oldest reference we have about the arrival of John here on Patmos. And the reason is that in the first chapter of the book, the author himself, by using grammatically the first singular, narrates this arrival. Because he says very simply, I, John, was on the isle that is called Patmos for the word of God and for the testimony of Jesus Christ. So the author himself claims in the first chapter of his own book that he was banished here on Patmos by the Roman Emperor Domitian in the 1st century, in 95 Anno Domini, and the reason was the persecutions against the first Christians. Ladies and gentlemen, here on Patmos, John was accustomed to staying permanently at the harbor area, in Scala, preaching over there, as we know, and baptizing the islanders he found here. We also know that from the harbor area, John, probably by using one of the old footpaths of the hill, he used to come in this particular place in order to pray. And because he was an elderly man, we know that he was escorted inside the cave by one disciple, the name of whom was Prochorus. Whenever you see icons depicting the cave, like this mosaic, the above the entrance, you see that always inside the cave there are two people. John, to the right, the disciple who escorted him, Prochorus, to the left. Ladies and gentlemen, if you read the first chapter of the book of Revelation, in this chapter, actually, you are going to read what happened inside the cave. And the reason is that the author himself, by using grammatically the first singular, narrates that particular spiritual experience he had in the cave. And he says, I was in the Spirit on the Lord's day, and heard behind me a loud voice, as of a trumpet, saying to me, fear not, I am Alpha and Omega, the first and the last. What thou seest, write it in a scroll, and send it upon the churches which are in Asia, upon Ephesus, your next stop. Smyrna, Sardis, Philadelphia, Laodicea, Pergamos, and Thyatira. When John heard this loud voice inside the cave, which sounded to him like trumpets or waterfalls, he turned around to see it. And when he turned around to see it, he saw inside the cave the resurrected and also ascended Christ stepping on the floor of it. This place we are going to visit now, from the perspective of holiness, it is a divinely touched spot. Or, if you like, this place where the book of the Revelation was received inside is a place similar to the Mount Sinai. Such a place we're going to visit now. A Sinai which is located in the center of the Aegean Sea. And of course, this is the only reason that Patmos is characterized as the second Jerusalem, or the Jerusalem of the Aegean Sea. Ladies and gentlemen, the most beloved disciple of Christ, who rested actually his head on the chest of Christ during the Last Supper, the author of the book of Revelation, stayed here on Patmos only for 18 months of his life, between 95 and 97 AD. After the assassination of Domitian, there was another emperor after him, Roman as well, whose name was Nerva. Nerva, as a character, was very positive towards the Christians. He released all the exiles and the punishments of them. He gave amnesty to them. That's why there was no motive for the exiled John to stay here on Patmos anymore. In 97 AD, John and the young disciple who escorted him, Prochorus, left Patmos and went back to Ephesus. Ephesus, your next stop, is a city which lies opposite us in Asia Minor, where Turkey is located nowadays. Outside the huge archaeological site of Ephesus, ladies and gentlemen, and on a hill which is very close to a Turkish village named Selçuk, the tomb of John still exists nowadays. Ladies and gentlemen, the cave nowadays has been formed as a church. It's an active place spiritually. Almost every day services are held. And actually, the cave functions as a parish. Many locals who live very close to this place just prefer to come here to celebrate the Mass. From this place I'm going to tell you what you are going to see inside. We go there silently. It's Sunday today. That means practically that there is a service now in the cave, and then we leave the place. First of all, at one corner of the rock of the cave, and very close to the floor, there is a big hole. The oral tradition of this island, which is a very old tradition and which was kept very vivid by generation to generation, claims that whenever the son of Zebedee and Salome wanted to rest, he was accustomed to lying down on the ground of the cave, placing his head in this big hole, utilizing the hole as a sort of a pillow. Inside the cave, there is also another hole, a small one. The oral tradition of this island also claims that, due to his high age, whenever the most beloved disciple of Christ wanted to help himself lift his old body up, he used to put his hand in that smaller hole, using it as a sort of a support. Inside the cave, there is also a flat and natural inclination of the rock. It looks like a natural bookstand nowadays. This is actually the natural bookstand where the biblical text was being dictated on, because John did not write the book of the Revelation by himself. All these visions he received in the cave, the 7 seals, the 7 trumpets, the 7 vials or bowls, as you can see in this mosaic, he dictated them to that young disciple who escorted him. Finally, on the roof of the cave, there is a large crack. The voice, which sounded to John like trumpets or waterfalls, was so loud that it caused this particular crack on the roof. This crack actually splits the rock of the cave into three large parts, symbolizing the very fundamental symbol of all Christian denominations, the Holy Trinity of God, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. So, when we enter the cave, do not forget to focus your attention on the pillow of John, the support of John, the natural bookstand where the biblical text was being dictated on, the large crack on the roof, and also the symbol of the Holy Trinity of God. Because the cave is at a lower level than we are, that means that we have to use steps. 45 steps. Steep ones. Hold firmly the banister. We'll use the same steps to return. Do you have any questions so far before I tell you about the meeting time and the meeting place?
Going down to the cave. Real steep steps. Guess I better watch where I'm going. We're going up to the monastery of St. John the Divine. That's the name of it. Rose decided she's going to stay down here and remain cool. It's now approximately 9 o'clock. We're on top of the mountain here at Patmos. Our ship is anchored down there in the harbor. We'll be going back here shortly. We are at Ephesus. About time to change the tape. This is just amazing. Our tour guide's name is Nam. Better start to change tape now.
So, even today's standards, 250,000 people is an enormous town. And think about it 2,000 years ago. Now, the question is, how would you figure out, how many people that lived in the city? Rule of the thumb is not that, because that's a small theater. The biggest, the administrative theater, the population of it, the size of it, 25,000 people. And we know the time of Augustus, the ratio of a Roman citizen versus the rest is 1 to 9. So it is 10% of the population of the city would be the size of the theater. 25,000 people capacity theater, thus you have 250,000 population. 1 Roman citizen, 9 slaves. That was the ratio. So that's how you come up with those numbers. When you come up with those numbers, it's hard to, okay, 250,000 people, there are questions that you ask right away. 1, water. 2, material. 3, food. You have to handle these problems if you're a mayor of the city, or a governor of the city, or if you're the king of the city, or a satrap, whatever. The title is not important. Food, actually another problem. You've seen it on the way while we're coming over here. It's very fertile. Put a dead stick somewhere here, it's going to flourish. That's fertilizer. The second one is marble, construction material. See that everywhere. We're very rich with marble, Turkey. At the time of Rome,
Small theater.
Empire, if you are living in the city of Rome, the capital city, if you are rich, and if you want to show it to the rest of the people, you put Afyon cherry marble, that is half an hour from here, all over your house. The most expensive marble for Rome, to Romans, came from this land. So it's a very fertile land for marble as well. And the last issue is water. You can handle marble, you can handle food, but lack of water is a problem for any city. They had to build aqueducts, Roman aqueducts that leads water. They had 3 systems here, and those aqueducts lead the water to the cisterns, and from cisterns the water is led to the houses, to the temples, to the state buildings. Now it's hard to visualize that one because it used to be right there. See that line of wall-ish, marble-ish pile of stone? That was the Vulture Palace. It looks like now what it looks like, as you can see, but at the time when this was an active city, right out there, this construction would have been standing.
Wow.
The whole area, which is now guarded by 2 trees, which you see was one of the Vulture Palaces. Around this, they had a columned buildings in the center, as many different temples as they can, so that whatever you are, you're an Egyptian, you're Jewish, you're followers of Artemis, you're followers of Zeus, Poseidon, Ephesus, you'll find a temple for yourself. So they use it as a marketing tool to drag people here. This is the center of finance in the district. And then the theater, the small one, is here. Now in the books it says it can hold 2,000 people, but I don't know who did the calculation for that.
Street of Ephesus. There's where the administrative theater was at. Temple buildings.
Will last about a century now. Those things last 3,000 years.
If the earthquake came.
Hadn't damaged it.
Well, is all of this
2-story high, 330 feet length, Roman rectangular vaulted building, which in other terms, basilica. From the beginning of that wall to the end there, which was a Roman basilica. We're in the center, in the nave of it. Bless you. Well, this was a basilica. It's not standing. On one side, basilica means, by the way, the place of the king, basil. It comes from that term. On one side of it, we have the official buildings. Town hall. What am I saying? Town temple. And the next one is town hall. When we say the town temple, that's where that statue I showed you the picture of in the bus came from. That's where they found it. They had a
The statue of Artemis was found
tradition.
here.
In these cities, a little bit of the water, that was the harbor. So these post lamps makes or act as a lighthouse for the ships coming into the city, so they can
2,000 years old. Street lamps
Sacred
for this road.
Processions were all on this street. Let's head down.
Czar's getting his picture made.
Or help, thank you. Probably the processions ends up here or starts from here. And when I say larger square, like the Trafalgar Square of London, that's sort of the concept here. We have some of the dedicated buildings of the city. We have a fountain of Domitian. We have a temple of Domitian too. Let's put these guys aside for a while. We'll talk about him because he's the guy who exiled it's John from here to Patmos. Then we have this to the right side with 3 entrances. We'll go with the books because they all say the same thing. But they haven't found any written edifice saying that this building is health sanctuary. We don't know. So, as the book says, let's assume it's a place where they treat the sick people. In the center, there's a round building. That round building looks like this. Outside the round building here, there are bull heads. I'll show you those bull heads while we walk by that. Bull is important. Around the bull heads there are garlands, because bulls are for sacrifice back then. And way out there on the other side, next to the hill, we don't know why we have that. These guys have honored a person called Memmius. We don't know why. Ephesians honored him. Because Memmius', if that's how it goes, Memmius' grandfather killed 80,000 Ephesians here. So why they have honored the grandson of a guy that they hate, I don't know. But that monument, memorial, may have looks like this or this. Which shows the fact, bless you, which shows the fact that we kind of don't know exactly what they look like. So these are two different theories, how that monument right in front of me, right behind me, looks like. Now besides these, we have this. This building is very important. Why is it very important? Because it refers to Domitian. Now this Domitian guy, he's a Roman emperor. He's a megalomaniac. He always spoke with the superlative form of language. He says, I'm the strongest, I'm the richest, I'm this and that. And he was very cruel. He crushed a lot of cities in Asia Minor when he was in power. And then, before he shows up in Ephesus, Ephesians build a temple for him. Just put yourselves into the shoes of this guy, who's a megalomaniac. You just show up in the city, and then you see a temple. You must be flattered. And especially when you see your statue. The statue, I don't have the picture, but that statue of Domitian, only the head is visible, and the head is in archaeological museum. The head is about 5 feet. When you do the math, probably the height of the statue is 26, 27 feet high. Just put your shoes into that guy, this megalomaniac. He shows up and says, wow, I love you guys.
a few denarii.
He said, I give you the right of having a temple in the name of the empire. Roman cult. This is the first and the earliest city of Asia where that Roman cult, Roman religion of Rome itself came to. Now this guy died at 96 AD. That's the end of St. John's exile, we guess. He died 96 AD. The moment the news comes here, Domitian is dead. Ephesians get together and they walk to the temple. Chop the head off. Put the head of upcoming emperor. That is the idea of Ephesus. Whatever gets the job done, all roads lead to democracy. There's no, they can do anything to be able to get along with everyone. But the most important thing there is that Roman cult, the emperor cult. It is 1,000 years, 600 years, 700 years that you can talk to people about Zeus sitting on top of the hill, his wife Hera, she's jealous about him, and he's a toy boy, he has a lot of affairs. And then there's Poseidon there, he's jealous about Zeus. And then you have Hermes, the god of the burglars, and he flies around all everywhere. And then you have Athena that comes out of the head of Zeus, Aphrodite, we know who she's famous for, and all that. It's how many years you can make people believe this. After a while, people were in need of something else, and they started deifying emperors. Alexander the Great is the first one. And then the Roman emperors started to be deified. Domitian is another one. After Domitian, Vespasian, all of them. They don't take it very seriously. But as personal. Vespasian on his deathbed while he was dying saying that, oh, I guess I'm becoming a god. But it was important for the existence of Rome. So that's the reason why they put a lot of emphasis on it. Imperial cult is important.
This is looking down the Cardo, Main Street. We're up here at the picture taking place. The columns following the street back up. That's the direction we came in.
Upper part of the city.
The upper part of the city was the town part.
Here, this is now civil area. Oh, he's pushing them up? Oh, don't knock them down. Then we'll have trouble. Here's the shop. So, this is it. Shopping arcade. Back then. This is the center of the socializing of Ephesus. That's the reason why, if you do something good for the city, your statue will be here so that everybody can see it. As an example, which is a typical Roman, see the sandals and the toga, and no head. That head is changed again, recycled. The inscription underneath it says, his name is Alexandros, he's a doctor, he found the cure of malaria.
Christian symbol in front of one of the shops.
Oh, okay.
They're saying that, although I'm taking your judgment, I'm killing
This
the
is
Christians,
Trajan's
but
fountain.
I don't seem to know what their guilt is. That's literally what the summary of the letter was. So Trajan was also an emperor who didn't have any idea what the Christian guilt was, but then he changed his mind later on. This is what the fountain behind me looked like. And it's the time of Trajan, 102 AD. Now it's a lot of concrete, a lot of pieces are missing, but
102 AD. He thought the world was round long before Galileo. One of the best preserved shops.
what was the not protected.
These are the terraced houses here, the most expensive places in Ephesus to live.
You see that modern membrane aluminum combination?
Most expensive place to live.
The goddess, actually.
Medusa.
I keep on saying the girl, but the goddess who has blue eyes, and when you look her
Medusa.
eyes, you turn to stone. You petrify.
TK, this one.
They used to put her to the entrance of temples to scare you to go into the temple. After pagan, you have the Christian history. Knock the Medusa out, get the blue eye of Medusa, put it on a fish. The blue-eyed fish is to ward the evil away for the Christians, to protect you, to bless you. When the Muslims came in, put the fish out, start carrying the blue eye. The blue eye, I don't know whether you've seen it so far or not, but you will see it's everywhere. It has no religious background in Islam, neither.
Hadrian's Temple.
On the terrace behind the temple, the city still expands. That place is another house which they haven't started excavating yet. Now, are you ready to?
This public latrine, hot water would be flowing through here, and they would use that.
They don't care about
Warm
privacy
seats. This is the trough where they would
And
clean
why we
themselves.
have a door? The reason is you have to pay for the toilet.
Library of Celsius. Excavation still goes on. Third largest library in the world.
Alexandria. The second largest, we'll see that once we go to Pergamum. Third largest is the one you're in, Ephesus. Alexandria, 300,000 books. Pergamum, 200,000 books. Dedicated to a guy named Celsus. It says that on the sign. He was the governor of Asia. So, when he died, his son wanted to do something in the memory of his father.
There was the edge of the city way up there.
Actually a grave. Underneath we have his burial. So over him, the library stands.
This is inside the Library of Celsius. You can see the marble casing here. The Agora, the marketplace. You can imagine how large of a place this is. And you can see they're assembling the stones and everything for reconstruction.
See where the tree
Western
line
gate of the Agora. The shops will be all the way around.
A little bit of a work. They haven't a series of work. They just shaved it, pulled the piles together. It's waiting its turn. And when you talk to them, they say we need another 100 years or so before they can.
Shops will be all around the outer edge.
With this I've seen a picture of 1996, not from here but Troy. I don't know what type of camera that they have. I don't know what type of lenses that they have, but it kind of penetrates like 3, 4, or 5 feet below the ground.
This is the road that Paul would have used to come from the ship, from the harbor. You can see the road, and it goes up to the theater. You turn and go back toward this Agora marketplace. We're back in Kusadasi, and this is the town of Kusadasi, and there is the ship that we were on, the Aquamarine. And we're not going to be back on there again. No, that's not the Aquamarine either. They must have already pulled out, but that's where we were harbored. And you can see downstairs where we ate supper. Wasn't too good. That's next to where our table was at. But we're doing real well. We enjoyed Ephesus this afternoon and about to have our devotional tonight. We're at Colossae. This is the tail that has not yet been excavated, and here is the sign. Here's the mulberry tree right near the entrance of Colossae.
This one is
This is in front of Laodicea, looking around the Lycus Valley. And here is the entrance to the gates. We've just been let off by our bus. Eric says hello. As you come out the main gates, you can look up at the mountain and see the snow. And you could imagine Colossae is in that direction, and the cold water coming off the mountain would arrive here.
Lycus Valley goes that way. It's the opening of it. And this direction is, if you were to be back at that time, and if you want to go to Syria, and that would be the direction that you have to go. And thus, because of that, the gate, the entrance on that side of the city is called the Syrian Gate. And that would lead to one of the main streets, which is too early to talk about it yet, but in a Roman town, there are 2 streets that crosses one another. They're called Cardo, and they think this is one of the 2 Cardos that the city had when it was on its peak. Now, let's start heading in that way.
These are chariot ruts. You can see them.
This is a fallen off column to the right side, and they just left it so that you can see what it used to be and what it is. A number of more columns will be on the way. And that's Philadelphia and Smyrna, which we'll be getting there tomorrow. But this is again one of the 5 churches that he said, I know your works and everything, so just the support of John comes. But also he warns every church on something about that they've given up the faith on, that they loosen on the Christian faith, and that they've given up from their, from the rules of the faith. And when you look at the way the letters are written, it shows the fact that he personally, St. John himself, personally knows people, personally knows the area, the geography of the cities that he refers to. He tells them what he wants to tell them using symbolism so that they can understand. And for Laodicea, he used them with the water, because this city has no water. It's an enormously powerful, well-sized, for money-wise, it's a very wealthy city. This place made its wealth from weaving. Weaving, wool dyeing, weaving. And they were very good on textile. Well, same thing, still. It's good. These people wear very expensive clothes. And he says in the letter, you think you're dressed, but you're naked. I mean, so that they can understand that the outside dress is, the physical dress is not important. And also, another analogy that he would use is, because it doesn't have any water, they have to get their water from either Colossae, which is too far, or Hierapolis. It's over there. And that water, when it comes out, it's 105 degrees. So by the time it gets, when it was very hot, by the time it gets here, it cools off. It's lukewarm. As he says, you're neither hot nor cold. And I prefer you either hot or cold, but you're lukewarm. And then it says, I spew you out of your mouth. Actually, the people having hard times drinking that water here, the one that comes from Hierapolis, they have a hard time because it has a lot of calcium in it. I mean, try to drink that, it's not good taste. It's like, it's very hard to gulp it down to the stomach. So if you're not used to it, you just throw it out. So he gives them with words that they can understand. These cities had a lot of, because of the wealth, had a lot of Jewish population. Laodicea, Philadelphia, Smyrna, all of them. And it's not because of the Jews that was a very favorable spot for apostles and disciples to come to these cities to fish. It's because of the God-fearers. Now, who are they? They are Gentiles, first of all. They were pagan, and they're still pagan. But the thing is, they found comforting in the monotheistic approach of Judaism, but they don't convert. They live around the Jewish communities and call themselves God-fearers. And those cities where the God-fearers are were a place for the disciples to fish. And that's the reason why in Laodicea, in Philadelphia, in Ephesus, these disciples came and tried to spread the word. And the two physical evidences we have here, one of the two physical evidences of the existence of Christians and existence of the Jewish people is right under you. Right.
There you're sitting on it.
See the menorah and the cross. We'll see the next one later on. It's in that fountain at the end of the street. It's right here. This is the only evidence that we can show you, besides the fountain that we're going to see, that the existence of the Jewish people.
22. Oh, yeah. No, I'm reading from Revelations 14 through 22. And unto the angel of the church of Laodiceans write, These things saith to the Amen, the faithful and the true witness and beginning of the creation of God. I know thy works, and thou art neither cold or hot. I would thou wert cold or hot. So then, because thou art lukewarm and neither cold nor hot, I will spew thee out of my mouth. Because thou sayest, I am rich and increase with goods, and have need of nothing, and knowest not that thou art wretched and miserable, and poor and blind and naked. I counsel thee to buy me gold tried in the fire, that thou mayest be rich, and white raiment, and thou mayest be clothed, and that shame by the nakedness do not appear, and anoint thine eyes with the eye salve, that thou mayest see. As many as I love, I rebuke and chasten. The zealous therefore I repent. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If any man hear my voice and open the door, I will come into him and sup with him, and he with me. To him that overcometh will I grant to sit with me in my throne, even as I also overcame, and I am set down with my Father in his throne. He that hath the ear, let him hear what the Spirit saith unto the churches.
That's the hallway.
Well, it could have been.
Turned into the baptismal for the church itself. And
Fountain
it's total
here at Laodicea.
immersion. And the only evidence of it is on the wall far end to the left. See that cross? On the far left corner of the two walls getting together, that marble piece just standing all alone by itself. That cross was a part of the baptismal. There's one more cross.
Part of the baptismal.
We're not allowed to go in.
This is another cross from the baptismal. And the other one is right there.
I don't know whether I can. Will they go mad if I go in there and point it?
Christian tree here, and you can see across the corner.
There's an ongoing excavation site here. And for perspective, Mercado, you turn about several degrees.
South to north. I see, but the pipeline brings water from there. That's where we're going to go afterwards. That's the Cotton Castle, Hierapolis. All over the country, Asia Minor, there are 40,000 theaters like that. So it was a big construction. This is the Lycus Valley.
Here's the rest of the theaters from down near the foot. This is the entrance to Pamukkale.
About to snap a picture for a PowerPoint. You took any girl walking down from you.
Here at the gate, they took this piece out of the temple to use as part of the building of the wall.
That's when most of these walls were renovated and reconstructed. Whatever you have in the city could be used as a material. So that's why those things are column heads, capitals, whatever. Can be found.
This is the aqueduct that would have flowed down
while they're doing the excavations here.
toward Laodicea. It's a tradition that Philip was martyred here. Here's a beautiful view of Pamukkale. Water going off and the Lycus River Valley. Wow, what a photo.
Oh my word. That's what you were showing finally.
What a photo. It's our crew taking pictures here at the Cotton Castle. Alan and Glenda. This is Hierapolis. And you can see the city.
Oh, swimming suit? Yeah. Tony and who else did that? Willard? I don't know.
He's asking 32 lira for the book over here. That's a very good book, by the way. I mean, if you're onto any sort of a document about the 7 churches that we've been seeing, that's quite a good book. But in Pergamum, they sell them for 26 lira. So there's a 4 or 5 lira difference. It's up to you. A part of the money, I guess, he keeps it to upkeep the area. It's also in a good cause. But bear in mind, tomorrow you may see that slightly cheaper. But if you buy it over here, it may go to the church. Well, church is the wrong word. It may go to the person who guards this place. All right. So, Philadelphia, literally, it means the city of the brother Lila. And the reason why it is called Philadelphia, it's because it's built for the brother of the guy. Attolos II, who was one of the kings of Pergamum, for his brother, he founded Philadelphia. And that's why they call it the person who loves his brother founded a city, so city of the brotherly love. Philadelphia, that's the term comes in. So it is Greek. I mean, the city is Greek, it's founded at the Greek times, it's not an earlier, we don't have at least early evidence of settlement here. So we accept that history. It's Greek and it became a Roman garrison.
What was the time of Attalus?
We're talking about 3rd century BC. The time of Pergamum Empire is 278 to 133. So that 150 years. 3rd and 2nd century BC is the time of that. So this city is 3rd century BC. If there is no evidence to be found of the existence of the earlier cultures. So when it comes to the time of Roman Empire, 1st century AD, it's again the same concept, Acropolis, and it's well fortified. And the city is, how many people, how many Christians live here? We don't know. How many people lived in the Philadelphia on its heyday? We don't know. There's no research done. And it's pretty much impossible. And you have to leave these things up to be able to find them. But there must be a very poor and troubled-lifed Christians here, because of all the letters that are written to the 7 churches. Smyrna, we're going to end up there, and Philadelphia are the 2 cities that John has no, I hold this against you. He doesn't have that. These letters are positive about this church, and he says, I know what Jews are doing you, and they call themselves Jews, but to me, the real Jews are you, the people over here. And he calls Philadelphia as the New Jerusalem in the letter. And this is the Stoa. There must be columns behind you buried in that earth. And the road should be underneath on the other side. There should be a roof above your head. And these are the entrances of the shops. And they had doors. See the places for the flaps of the doors to behold? And have a look at the marble. You see the scratches? That's from the door opening and closing here. Sometimes the businesses can be figured out. As we said, the tavern. We'll see horseshoe guy. I don't know what you call that in technical term.
Blacksmith.
The blacksmith. And we'll see the shop of the rabbi. So we'll be seeing them while we walk. There's one shop that is owned by a Christian, and it's the next one. You see, this is upside down. The writing that you see here is upside down. It was the epitaph in probably it was the necropolis, but then it's recycled here, and the owner of the building, the shop, 99% he was Christian, and to his basin he put that cross. The modern street, the modern road. Underneath is the Ottoman road, then you have the Roman road. So they don't have to look up for a new path, they don't have to have new strategies for the roads. It's been done earlier for them. And so they just cover up the old ones with the new ones. Now, when it comes to Paul, when it comes to the Christian travelers, especially if we're talking about Paul is the one not very comfortable. Totally not very comfortable. And sometimes on foot, it's done. On these roads, we have
The Roman road runs through Sardis.
like this. The idea of this stone is to help you to get on a horse. And sometimes these stones have inscriptions on it, saying that such and such guy, someone from the city that is rich, has donated, has gifted money to restore this portion of the road. And then on that stone it may say, Philadelphia is, I'm making it up, 6 miles from here. Those are called million. There's been hundreds of millions found in Asia Minor, thousands of millions found in the whole Roman world. Those are like milestones. They tell you distances to the next cities with the name of the person who renovated that portion of the street. It's demolished is the end of 2nd century AD.
The other side of this wall is the synagogue. Side a hardware shop.
To the city.
You can see the clay tiles.
Devastation. So the assumption is that this valuable property, this valuable real estate, may be given to the Jewish community after the earthquake, once they've given that charity, once they've given that donation to the city, to the town itself. And that's the only way to explain the fact that there is a synagogue right in the middle of the civic center of the city.
Mosaics on the floor.
Bloomingdale. Yeah, like right here. This is where we walked. That's where the shops are, outside the synagogue, in the columned area. At this corner is a fountain, courtyard. The inner courtyard, that's the synagogue. It was huge. This building is, excluding the courtyard, synagogue is 10,000 square feet size. That part. And they say up to 3,000-4,000 people can fit. But this is a reconstruction of it. The center part is open, so they don't know what's right. See the bricks, mortar are not original. Everything is reconstructed between the years of 65 and 73, 1965 and 73.
It's all reconstructed. Columns are real.
Synagogue, Sardis is a city of money. I told you, there's a lot of gold in here and a lot of power, financial power.
Where the Torah would be placed.
They haven't used Hebrew. They use Greek. That is amazing for a synagogue. Now,
They use Greek here.
with that letter that we heard, it said, John said, you're alive, you think you're alive, but you're dead. Yes, everybody's alive here. Everybody's having a lot of money, financial strength. But religion-wise, you're dead. The worst church of all the letters that we read is this one. Some of them are lukewarm. Some of them are gave into the heresy. But the church of Sardis is dead. They've Hellenized. They have swastika in the synagogue, which is kind of mind-boggling for a Jewish background. And if you have this sort of Hellenization in the Jewish community, you probably have the same sort of Hellenization in the Christian community. And that might be the reason why John refers to them. Now, let me repeat that again. John refers to these Christian communities with the language that they can understand. The second portion of that letter was, I will come in the middle of the night without you knowing. You remember that Persian army conquering here from that little entrances without they were aware? So John knows the entire background of the city, history, so that he can warn them about their... Now you're ready to go to the bath? Next door.
The gymnasium here at Sardis. Massive. These four capitals here. Of course, the archway is not correct. That was a wall, but the four columns are alabaster from Syria, the spiral ones. The rest of them are fluted. We're going through to the bath section. There would have been statues in this area out here.
But it doesn't come down.
3rd century BC, but it never was completed.
Day after day to build. It's
Temple of Artemis.
Job, so they couldn't finish it. At one point it was Artemis, then it was Artemis and the Emperor, and then it was Artemis and Apollon, and a later period it became totally devastated. I mean, fall down, and they built churches. There's a church. There's a church in the entrance.
Churches around it.
One standing. When I say standing, it's renovated on the opposite corner. To me, the most amazing thing about these temples that are, that's my personal opinion.
Of course, to visualize, you have to visualize Sardis destroyed by Cyrus at the top of the mountain where the flag is at. And this is Sardis, and you can imagine the reason of their self-confidence. Consider how steep the hills are there. As you zoom back, we're on the hill in between there and the Temple of Artemis. It's down here at the bottom. Here it is located. There happens to be a church, Byzantine church built there. Part of our crew is down here at the foot of this little hill. We are now in Thyatira, what is left of it.
The name of the town is Thyatira, or Thyatira. There's one thing different about this town, of all the towns that we've seen, and the town that we're going to see tomorrow, which is Pergamum. The rest of them are all on top of the hill. They were all well fortified. And when it comes to this one, it's right in the middle of the plain. It's on the way to Smyrna. I mean, you can alter the route from here to Smyrna, or you can go to Pergamum. So it is, if it's on the plain, it means it's open to any sort of an attack. So the history of the town has always been battles, armies running over it. And that's why whichever empire that owned the city had to keep the entire army or garrison within the city itself. But it didn't prosper in the history much because of these battles. This place was famous with bronze smiths, famous with wool dyers and weavers. They have their guilds in here. And again, if you read the letter, if you remember the letter, St. John again uses his analogy rhetorically. Tries to tell them what he's not happy with them, with words that they can understand. He says, I come with the red eyes and the steel bronze feet, which is the center of the bronze silversmiths. With that angry face. And also, he talks about a woman named Jezebel. Obviously, we don't know whether she really existed or not here, or that Jezebel is a word that is given to the people who practice sexual immorality and things like that in here. It's the longest letter that is written to any of the churches. But from the town itself, that's it. What you see there is the wall, is the basilica. 1970s, 1980s, they were claiming that it is the church. So people used to come here with the idea that it's the physical evidence. But then, right under the trees there, they did a little research. They found the stoa, the walkway, and over here, it's assumed to be the agora. So when you have an agora, next to the agora, you're going to have a basilica where business, buying, selling, trade, used to be done. So it is, the chances of this building being a physical evidence of the Christian presence of the town is very skinny. But it's still named as Basilica at the entrance. It still have a date of 6th century AD. But if you put those things out, we are in Thyatira, the city that is the address of that letter. That's what it counts. The rest of it, not worked, cannot be worked any longer. It's a modern city with a population of 40,000.
I'm actually now in the corner of the agora, and so that's what makes them think that was not a basilica over there, not a church. But you can see the remnants here. Many of them are not very well preserved. Someone has put together evidently a gate here. It is made of marble. And you can see the various pieces that could possibly one day be restored. It doesn't appear that there's any motivation on their part to do any restoration work here.